A major update on the Kyle Kuzma trade front, plus a great sign for the trade market overall if you want to see deals get done. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. You know, I've said it before, only about 20% of you watching this video are actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're in that other 80%, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications as well. We're going to be bringing you the best around the NBA every day. All right, so let's get into the latest news on Kyle Kuzma. This is the situation. According to Evan Sidery, the Wizards are believed to have lowered their asking price in trade talks on Kyle Kuzma. Washington held out for 2 first-round picks last year, but the belief is it might only take 1 pick and a prospect. The Heat, Kings, and Lakers are among teams showing interest in Kuzma. So let's talk first about Kyle Kuzma himself, and then we need to talk about the trade market and why this is actually a huge deal for the NBA trade market when we take it into the greater context. But Kyle Kuzma himself, right now he's out. He's dealing with a rib injury. He may be back in action on Thursday for the Wizards. That right now is up in the air. But Kyle Kuzma, versatile wing, the type of player that a lot of contending teams want to go get, can score the basketball a little bit, hasn't been super efficient this year, but can score the ball a little bit from the perimeter. The three-point shot, not as good as you'd like, but he's still the kind of switchy, versatile wing player that a lot of teams could plug in. And the thing that a lot of teams really like about him, it's his contract. And this is where I actually think the Wizards could fall back on the idea that they don't have to move him necessarily this season because his contract actually declines. So if you look at his deal over the next 3 seasons here, 17%, just under that percent of the cap this year, $23.5 million. But then next year, it goes down to 14%, 13.9%, really $21.5 million. And then it goes down again, $19.4 million in the final year of his deal. That's just 11% of the cap. That's a tremendous value for a player like Kyle Kuzma. So I think there's going to be not just positionally teams interested in Kyle Kuzma because we know that teams are always looking for help on the wing, but you also have the benefit of this absolutely beautiful contract that actually decreases and will only increase the flexibility of the team that has him on the roster. So I do think Kyle Kuzma's going to be in demand out there on the trade market. And now that you've got the asking price going down, I think that's a fantastic thing towards actually getting a deal done for him. The Washington Wizards, they've made it very clear that they are in the middle of a tear down and they have not completed. They have not torn down this roster yet. They're in the middle of that process. They still have guys that they need to move on from. So if they're lowering that asking price to 1 first-round pick and perhaps a prospect, now there's a wide range in value in a first-round pick and a prospect. That could be a top-level prospect. It could be a very low-level prospect. It could be a fake first-round pick, which is really most likely going to become a second-round pick or become nothing. It could be a very valuable first-round pick from an unprotected pick from a bad team. So there's a wide range of value there when we hear first-round pick and a prospect. But still, this is I think a good sign that Kyle Kuzma is more likely than not to get moved because, number one, I think there's going to be interest in him. I think his contract makes him even more interesting than some of the other players on the market that could fill the position when we talk about, let's say, a Jeremy Grant. Now, Cam Johnson, I think teams will hold in higher regard than Kyle Kuzma, so maybe not him, but could a team that's interested in Dorian Finney-Smith also pivot towards Kyle Kuzma? Sure, when we look at the wings that are out there on the market, certainly I think teams would have an easier time trading for Kyle Kuzma than they would his former Lakers teammate, Brandon Ingram. So I do think that this makes it more likely than not that Kyle Kuzma winds up on a new team this year. He was almost traded to the Dallas Mavericks last year at the trade deadline. Didn't happen. They wound up going and getting PJ Washington instead and then did a deal with the Wizards for Daniel Gafford. So I think this is great news if you're looking for a Kyle Kuzma trade specifically. But let me give a second here before we get into the trade market as a whole. Let me give a shout out to our sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. They do a phenomenal job. Daily fantasy can be so much fun to play. And here's what I love about today. You know, tonight we've got the NBA Cup final between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Thunder right now, the favorites there. But Prize Picks, super fun to play. All you got to do is pick 2 or more selections, then pick more or less. But here's what I love about Prize Picks. Look at this. 0.5 points for Nikola Jokic. Now, this is a Christmas Day game, but still, it's like Christmas comes early here, right? You know, it's a free square. That's what it is, essentially, right? 0.5 points. We know he's going to get that. But even there, even look here. We've got Giannis Antetokounmpo. You see this? This is a taco. This is one of their promos. And what they did is they actually lowered the number. They went from 30.5 points for Giannis down to 25.5, which Giannis is always likely to eclipse that number. So it gives you a greater chance of success. That's part of what's called Taco Tuesday, which is a lot of fun over on Prize Picks. So there's Giannis, 25.5. I will take that one. Let's go find somebody on the Thunder. 32.5 for SGA. Gosh, he's so good, but that's a high line for me. You know what? I'm going to say Lou Dort. 6 boards, 6 assists and assists combined. I think he can get there. I think he's going to be a really important piece, as he always is, for OKC, and he's going to be out there scrapping all game long. So I'll go Lou Dort, more than 6 boards and assists, and I will also take that taco on Giannis Antetokounmpo, 25.5 points. If you guys want to check out Prize Picks, use our code Bulletin. Okay, again, that code is Bulletin. Putting it on the screen right now for you. Use that code Bulletin, and it's a great deal. You get a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineup. So again, once you go check out prizepicks.com, use the link in the description down below, use that code Bulletin, get a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineups. All right, so let me get into why this is such a big deal for the trade market when we look at what's happening here with Kyle Kuzma and what's happening in the market in general. So what's been going on right now is you've got asking prices dropping. You know, we've seen actually deals get executed. One of them anyway, get executed as a result. So for example, the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets, they just pulled a trade for Dennis Schroeder. Now the Nets netted, pun intended, I guess, netted 2 second-round picks in the positive. They sent a second-round pick to Golden State. They got back 3 second-round picks, so that's a net positive of 2 second-round picks. Before that, though, the Nets put out there, we want a first-round pick. But then they very quickly lowered their asking price. Okay, and I said that could be a big thing for the market in general if asking prices are coming down. And I think what's happening is you've got enough teams out there in the market right now that are sellers. They're on the seller side of things. We talk about the Wizards, they're a seller, certainly. The Nets are a seller. The Chicago Bulls are going to pivot towards becoming a seller. The Portland Trail Blazers are going to become a seller. These are teams that are going to be trying to trade away players for future assets. And the problem in years past has been that the sellers were able to hold their line. We're able to set a super high asking price and then hold and not have to bring that down. Because what happens in order for deals to get done around the NBA, it's that you've got to have the sellers and the buyers. The offers start low, the asking price starts high. They move towards each other as we get closer to the trade deadline, and then you have deals get done. But what's happened over the last few seasons is that sellers have set a very high asking price, and because there's been so many buyers on the market and so few sellers, when we talk supply and demand, there simply hasn't been a reason for the sellers to lower their asking price. There hasn't been that much competition. There's not that much inventory out there on the market in terms of players to go after. And there's so many buyers. It's the reason why, like when the new iPhone comes out, right? What do? Well, they don't release enough of them, or the new gaming system, or whatever you want to go to. They don't release enough of them for everybody to get one. Why? Because it keeps demand super high. Well, demand is high and the supply is low. What happens? Price goes up. The value goes up. You can ask a super high price. And that's what we've seen on the market over the past few years. It's very simple economics. We've seen a very limited pool of players available to be traded and a huge swarm of buyers, and that drives prices up. And unfortunately, prices have been so high that it's actually prevented deals from getting done. Well, now we've got the Wizards lowering their asking price on Kyle Kuzma. The Nets very quickly lowered their asking price on Dennis Schroeder and actually got a deal done, pivoted off of a first-round pick, which I think what a lot of teams are hesitant to give up under the new CBA is first-round picks. So you've got the Nets pivoted away from a first-round pick and accepted second-rounders. I think that's a big deal. You've got Kyle Kuzma, now instead of 2 firsts, now it's 1 first. We had a similar report just the other day about Jeremy Grant, that the Blazers are willing to lower the asking price on him as well. That instead of asking for 2 firsts, they would consider 1 first. I still think that's too high. If you told me I could get either Kyle Kuzma or Jeremy Grant and my cost is 1 first-round pick, give me Kyle Kuzma all day, every day. It's not even close because of the contract. The Jeremy Grant contract is simply much bigger and a longer deal. But What's happening is now you're actually getting competition among sellers. You look at the market right now, and I think this is massive for the trade market and why I think we're going to see more moves getting done this year than we've seen in previous years. So, yes, the new CBA has complicated things, but look at what's happening in this draft class. This is a draft class that teams really want to get a high pick in. It's seen as a star-laden draft class, not like the last season's draft class, which was seen as kind of a dud. You could find some role players, but you're not going to find a star there. There are franchise-changing players in this year's draft class. So it's created increased competition to get a top pick in this year's class, in addition to the fact that a lot of the guys that are on the market are playing the same position. And so you've actually got competition among sellers. And so what's happening is the sellers are competing with each other and they're lowering their asking price. So for example, the Portland Trailblazers the other day, word gets out that the Blazers lower their price on Jeremy Grant. The Wizards then respond. They lower their price on Kyle Kuzma, right? Because teams are going to pick Kuzma, just like I would, over Jeremy Grant, I believe. But if the asking price on Kyle Kuzma is 2 firsts and the asking price on Grant is 1, maybe somebody would go towards Grant instead. If it's the same price, they're going to go to Kuzma. So it wouldn't shock me if now we see the Blazers might lower their price. Now, there's a limit to it. There's a point where teams just say, forget it. I'm not selling the guy for that price. But there's actually competition among sellers. There's also competition among buyers. There's only so many assets out there. You know how many fans of teams in the NBA right now were kicking themselves saying, man, we should have got Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, there's teams who want to buy right now as well, and they're competing. So now you've got an equal dynamic in competition among buyers and competition among sellers. And I think that's going to create the prices coming down to more reasonable levels and deals will get done, just like we saw with the Dennis Schroeder situation. I don't think a first for Kyle Kuzma is an unreasonable ask given his contract. The Jeremy Grant asking price already coming down. Dorian Finney-Smith, another wing that's on the market. I'm expecting his asking price to continue to drop. Maybe they ultimately do second-round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith as well. If you're the Brooklyn Nets, he could always opt out this summer, so that's something to keep an eye on there. Dorian Finney-Smith is a player option for next year, so the Nets could be looking at it as a situation where, hey, if we don't move him now, we could lose him for nothing in June and in July. So let's try to make something happen now. And okay, I guess we'll take second round picks. I do think these prices are going to continue to go down a bit as we get closer to the deadline. And that's going to create more movement and more activity. So Kyle Kuzma aside, I think it's a big deal for the Kyle Kuzma trade market. But if you want to see deals happen, and I know a lot of us do, what's happening right now in the NBA trade market is a huge positive because it's telling you that things have changed from years past. There's more sellers on the market. The prices are going to be more reasonable, and I think that means more deals are going to get done. We are hearing buyers are a bit more hesitant to give up future first-round draft capital. That could make things a little bit challenging. But again, the lower the prices get, the more likely that we're going to see more moves. So right now we're seeing teams kind of battle each other, lowering their prices. Saw it with Jeremy Grant, saw it with Kyle Kuzma, saw it with Dennis Schroeder. I think the same is going to happen on the big man market when you've got guys like Jonas Valanciunas, you've got Robert Williams with the Blazers, you've got guys like, you could say Jakob Poeltl, he's a different tier, but Jakob Poeltl, Nikola Vucevic, probably in the same tier, especially salary-wise when we're looking at them. Some of the other players, that's just a few. There'll be others on the market too, but there's competition among these positions, particularly on the wing and in bigs. And I think that is going to create actually more opportunities for deals to get done. So it's a great sign. It's a great sign for the market. And if you're a team that's interested in Kyle Kuzma, the Kings, the Kings have been interested in him for a while. They thought they had him a few years back. The Lakers probably wish they had just done that deal, but they didn't. But the Kings, the Heat, the Lakers, I'm sure there will be other teams interested as well. Positive on Kyle Kuzma, positive vibes from the market overall that we're finally seeing prices come down. And that, I hope, fingers crossed, as long as buyers continue to step up and don't get too hesitant because of the new CBA, that should help us get deals done. All right, everybody, make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Don't forget to do that and go check out our latest video. We had a bunch out yesterday on Lonzo Ball, on the Pelicans and their trade front with Zion Williamson, with Brandon Ingram. We also had a live show that broke down a lot of stuff around the trade market. So I'm actually going to link that right now. Go check it out. A lot of stuff going on in the NBA trade market as we head towards the holiday season. NBA trade deadline is February 6th. And, we're going to be on top of all of it.